Hi everybody, Andrew back for another Barista Basics video. Now you may notice that I am in a different location today, and that is because I am actually home in New Jersey for the holidays. I am very happy to be back. Some much needed relaxation time, some time to spend with my family, my friends, my dog. So I'm pretty giddy right now. You will also notice that these videos should be much more quiet than some of my other videos because my birds are not with me in New Jersey currently. They're safe and sound in South Carolina being taken care of, and so I hope these videos will be a little bit more peaceful for us. So let's go ahead and enjoy this peace and quiet while we can. But with that said, I do need to make, of course, a quick disclaimer that any opinions stated in my videos are my own, and I'm not here trying to represent Starbucks or any other corporation or impede on any of these companies' intellectual properties or trademarks. My videos are simply just meant for fun and educational purposes. So with all of that introductory stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and get into today's topic, which is how decaffeinated coffee or decaffeinated espresso is created. So this can be done through primarily 3 different methods. Of course, have our lovely little cheat sheet here. And so these methods are the water processing method, the direct solvent method, and the supercritical carbon dioxide method. And of course, we're going to talk about the specifics of each one of these processes. But first, I would like to specifically note this note I have on the bottom of the paper stating that nothing is ever 100% caffeine free. So as we could see with those percentages listed on the paper, at most 98% of caffeine is extracted from green coffee beans, meaning there's clearly still some caffeine left in our decaf coffee or espresso. And so it is virtually impossible to extract all of the caffeine from coffee, but I felt that this was important to mention just in case there are any companies out there or anybody who tries to claim that their product is 100% caffeine free. I just wanted to let it be known that that is a lie, that it is not possible to have something be 100% caffeine free. It can be called decaf, and we'll get into that distinction at the end of the video, but anything that says it's 100% caffeine free is not true, so please be wary of that. But with that said, let's go ahead and get into our 3 specific methods of caffeine extraction. So there are a few similarities actually between all of these methods, which I should touch on first. These similarities include that our green coffee beans are pre-moistened before they undergo any of these processes because that makes the caffeine more soluble, so it's easier to extract. Also, all of these processes occur between 160 degrees Fahrenheit and 210 degrees Fahrenheit. So those are the similarities of our processes. Now we can go ahead and discuss each one of these methods separately. So our first method is the water processing method, and as you can imagine, this uses water as the solvent to extract the caffeine. And so with this process, our green coffee beans are placed into a vessel and they are soaked in a low caffeine green coffee extract and water solution. And so the oils in our coffee extract help to aid this decaffeination process, and this of course results in the decaffeination of our coffee beans, our green coffee beans. And so after they have been sitting in the solution for a certain amount of time, they are drained, rinsed, and dried, and that leaves us with our decaf coffee. Now, what I'm about to discuss is kind of another similarity between all of these processes, wherein they're kind of not self-sustaining, but these processes feed into each other. Some of their outputs are used again in the input of the process, which will be clearly demonstrated with what I'm about to discuss, which is how we get our low caffeine green coffee water extract solution. So the way they get this is by placing fresh green coffee beans, freshly picked and extracted from our coffee cherries, which we learned about a few weeks ago. These green beans are steamed, and this creates a very caffeine-rich extract. Now, this extract is then passed through a bed of activated charcoal, and this helps to remove most of the caffeine from this extract. And so this is how we get that low caffeine green coffee extract and water solution that is then used to further extract the caffeine from our green coffee beans. So as we can see, this process sort of feeds into itself, which we will also see with our two following processes. Now, this water processing method removes 94 to 96% of the caffeine. So this one potentially renders us with the least amount of caffeine extracted. And this is due to the fact that this process is the most general, or should I say the least specific. And what I mean by that is that there aren't any specific chemicals that target just caffeine in this process, since water is our solvent. So water is not only going to extract our soluble caffeine, but also other soluble sugars and proteins. So this is a useful process, of course, but there are other methods, for example, the two that I'm about to discuss, that more precisely target just our caffeine. So to get into that, we can go ahead and discuss our second method, the direct solvent method. And so this uses either ethyl acetate, methylene chloride, or coffee oil to dissolve and extract our caffeine from the coffee beans. So any one of these liquid solvents are circulated around our pre-moistened coffee beans, of course, and this removes some of the caffeine from them. This solvent is then recaptured using an evaporator, and our beans are then washed. Now, this process is a bit unique because it is done in what is called batch processing. And so this is where essentially these green beans will undergo the same process again and again until they reach the desired level of caffeine. So this, as we can see, this also plays into the sort of self-sustaining, self-feeding process. Now, it is also important to note that our green coffee beans are then steamed after they have been washed to remove any of the remaining residue of the solvent to trace amounts, so it's safe to consume. And so this method renders us with 96 to 97% of caffeine removal, and as I mentioned, this method is much more precise because these chemicals or solutions are better suited to target specifically the caffeine as opposed to other components of our coffee. Now, moving on to our last method, which is the supercritical carbon dioxide method. This one is pretty similar to our direct solvent method, except it uses, of course, carbon dioxide as our solvent as opposed to a certain kind of chemical. So in this process, our green coffee beans are placed into a highly pressurized vessel, and this pressure creates what is called a supercritical carbon dioxide. And this just essentially means that the carbon dioxide has the density of a liquid, but still has the viscosity and the diffusivity of similar to that of a gas. And so all of these fancy words essentially mean that it is just a really, really good, it enhances its ability to dissolve and extract caffeine. It enhances its ability as a solvent. So this supercritical carbon dioxide that has now been saturated with caffeine because it's extracted it from our beans is then channeled through either a bed of activated charcoal or a water tower, and this helps to remove the caffeine from our carbon dioxide. Then, as I mentioned with our other processes, this process, again, is self-sustaining, and this carbon dioxide is then reused for the next batch of green coffee beans. So, as we saw on the paper, this removes 96 to 98% of our caffeine. So this is potentially the most effective method of caffeine extraction. So that is actually going to be all regarding our specific processes. Now, to touch on the note that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, that nothing is ever 100% caffeine free, this raises the question of, well, if it's not 100% caffeine free, how can it be called decaffeinated? So, according to certain government regulations, coffee or espresso can be labeled as decaffeinated if it contains less than 10 milligrams of caffeine per serving. Now, most decaffeinated coffee or espresso contains between 2 milligrams and 5 milligrams. And so, as long as it's under 10 milligrams, though, it's considered decaffeinated, because the most caffeine-sensitive individuals really start to feel the effects of caffeine when there's 10 milligrams per serving. So if there is less than that amount, it is effectively caffeine-free without actually being caffeine-free. That's why they coined the term decaf as opposed to caffeine-free, since it still embodies the same principle, but without lying, because saying something would be caffeine-free would be a lie, as I mentioned previously. And I'm looking over my notes here, and yeah, I think that is actually going to be all for the video. Sorry this one's a bit long today, but this information is a bit more in-depth. But with that said, I'll go ahead and show our nice little cheat sheet here, and I'll just quickly go over each one of these processes once again. We have our water processing method that uses water as its solvent and is more general, not very specific to just caffeine. And so this results in 94 to 96% of the caffeine removed. We then have our direct solvent method, which utilizes either ethyl acetate or methylene chloride or coffee oil as our solvent, and this more specifically targets our caffeine and results in decaf coffee that is 96 to 97% decaffeinated. Lastly, we have our supercritical carbon dioxide method, which of course uses carbon dioxide as our solvent rather, and this method results in 96 to 98% of caffeine extracted. And to reiterate, once again, I cannot stress this enough, there is no decaf coffee that is 100% caffeine free. So please be wary of that, like I said. But with that review over, I think that is actually going to be all for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed that video, of course. I hope that you guys learned something. More importantly, I hope that this video was able to clear up some misconceptions about decaf coffee and decaf espresso. And yeah, I hope you guys have a happy holiday season, whatever holiday you celebrate, or if you choose not to. I hope that you guys just have a great time, since this is a joyful time of year. And I hope that you guys specifically have a great day today. And I thank you guys so much for checking my video out. I hope you guys have a good day. Thank you.